I'm not finished with the interview, but I just want for our viewers, your book is Enviromedics, the Impact of Climate Change on Human Health. Are you happy with your book?
I'm happy with it because it's the best we could do at the time. Like many books that I've been involved with, mostly the wilderness medicine stuff, anything you write starts going out of date 6 months before you publish it because that's your lead time. And so Jay and I have already talked about should we do a revision of this at some time in the future just to update it. So there's nothing in there that I feel, is wrong and that we need to remove, but we know more now than we knew 2 years ago. So I'm happy with it, and mostly because it seems to be serving its purpose. Jay had edited a multi-authored, very high-end textbook on climate change and health, and he did a wonderful job. And when I was talking to him, I said, Jay, I think something should be written for lay people, because I don't know how many non-scientists, non-doctors are going to buy a multi-thousand page textbook on climate change that's written at a very high science level. And I'd like to have something that could be on the desk of every legislator in America who is actually responsible for making the decisions that will impact how people live. And I want them to understand that climate change is related to human health. It's related to a lot of other things, but at the end of the day, the Pharaoh let his people go when his entire household was wiped out. I don't want to get to that point. I want people to see it coming and say, "Ooh, we better do something." And so that's why I wrote it and worked with Jay to write it. He's a fascinating, entertaining, energetic young doctor who is very passionate about this topic. And so I'm trying to use this to get into the radar of people who are in politics, who are in industry, who are civic leaders, who are going to make the decisions about the kinds of businesses they want, the kind of communities they want, the kind of preparations they're going to make, and just say, this is how all these things relate to human health.
Okay. Yeah. What are you doing to promote your book, if anything? You might, my publisher won't be happy if I say this. I'm not, it wasn't about the book. It was about the message. So if I hear people who are interested in the topic, I'll send them a book, or I'll direct them to the book and say, here's something I think you'll understand that'll clarify some of the things that you're talking about. Yes. But I haven't had a big media campaign. I'm working on a couple projects related to climate change, and I thought I'm always working on the next thing. So I'm working now with the National Center for Disaster Medicine and Public Health out of the Uniformed Services University to try and formulate a public-private partnership to get citizens in the United States to be prepared for climate change related disasters, to be able to do self-help so that you're not waiting for the cavalry to come in. And so I'm working on that. We will probably launch some projects to make at least one and maybe more emergency departments climate smart and start to direct healthcare facilities towards that. But aside from the initial round of publicity that came out when the book was published, and some radio interviews and a little of this and a little of that, I haven't been pushing it hard. Just not enough time in the day. I bought the book, but I forgot where I went
to buy it. Could you tell me where people could go?
Well, I'm a big fan of independent booksellers, so I always say it's worth a call. When I was a big fan of Books Inc. And but they're struggling. I mean, everything's online now, so you can always go to Amazon or Barnes and Noble or whomever's online. You can go to the publisher online. Um, but if you have a local independent bookseller, that's probably the best place to go. Um, they need the traffic. The pricing's pretty uniform. Fortunately, I've not seen the book being unloaded in quantity at a discount yet. And so, the quick, easy way to do it is Amazon. If you have a Kepler's or someplace that you like to go and sit and read, it's just a phone call. Do you have this book?
Yes. Now I'd like to ask a little bit about teaching medicine. And you were a professor, I believe, at Stanford's Medical School. Can you tell me, over the last 10 or 20 years, if there has been a change in the approach of teaching medicine?
I think there has. Many of us are at medical schools or at, if not in medicine, at any school, a high school, a college, vocational school, to teach, because we like to be with people that want to learn, because that keeps us current. And we want to be with people that are enthusiastic. I think what's changed most in medicine is the volume of material that medical students need to get into their heads before they graduate. There's just so much more that's known now about every topic, and it's frankly impossible to remember it all. So medical school has become more and more a place to be exposed to everything, catalog stuff so you know where to find it. You're pretty young when you go, and then you have to choose a career. And I think, given the number of choices and the amount of material there is, I think it's too short. And now, if you talk to the average medical student, that's heresy, because they'll say it's too long. They want to get out and start seeing patients or whatever they're going to do. I just think the volume of material and the pressure to learn it all, there's a lot of pressure on these kids that didn't exist when I was coming through. I mean, we worked plenty hard, but that's the big change I see. And what's going to change in education is going to be the emphasis on less emphasis on the humanistic aspects of medicine and more emphasis on the structure of systems and efficiency and customer satisfaction and things that are important, but are not at the core of why people in my group went to medical school. I mean, we went to medical school to take care of patients. We didn't go there to turn our backs to patients and look at a computer screen. We didn't have production measures. We were hard on each other, but in a way that was constructive, that forced everybody to learn. Medicine has too much business in it now and doesn't have enough doctor-patient relationship in it. Now, I know things change and I know I sound old-fashioned, but that's my honest feeling. I've talked to a lot of my friends because of my current situation, and I've said, what's on your mind? What do you want to talk about? And they're discouraged. The doctor friends I have are discouraged. They said, it's getting to be less and less fun.
Yes.
And that's tragic. I mean, if we take all the people who were taking joy out of medicine and take the joy away from them, it's just too hard a life
Yes.
to not be joyful. So that's what I see. Now that sounds a little gloomy, on the bright side. There's just amazing scientific advance. We're on the cusp of solving some big problems. But as we're seeing with COVID-19, and as we know repetitively with certain types of cancer, something's going to get you. And, it's just a question of how can you do the greatest amount of good for the greatest number of people, cause the least amount of harm, and just keep working that theme over and over again and stay centered on, why you're in that business to start with.
Very good. I was wondering, again, as a teacher now, are there any principles you share with the students to help you be more effective in educating them and then being more effective in absorbing the information?
Well, from a doctor-patient relationship standpoint, I always ask them to try and put themselves in the patient's shoes. So just take a step back and imagine that you're the person you're taking care of and how they must feel.
Yes.
And what it is you're going to do for them, to them, with them, that's going to bring them relief. And so I do that. It's a bad trait of mine because I've worked so hard my whole life, but I kind of have a deaf ear to fatigue. So I'm not the poster child for work-life balance. And so I'm naturally attracted to people who make personal sacrifices to do the right thing for the people that they're taking care of. I don't expect them to, walk on hot coals and jump off a bridge, but you signed up for a 24-hour-a-day business, and sometimes it's 24 hours a day,
Yes.
So I make that clear in the beginning. And I learned that from my mentors who loved teaching us and were so much smarter than we were, but they just established right away that we were there to work. And that's what the job was. So I try and do that without pissing everybody off, and usually fail miserably at that aspect of it.
Yeah.
But, it's, I think I learned more about that by having kids than by being an educator. I would say those are the two main things. And then just don't be afraid to fail. Okay. You don't want to fail. You're trying not to fail. But if you've ever coached little kids in sports, it's the child that can move past their mistakes that you want to have on your team, because if they can't, they're all going to make mistakes. And so if mistakes render you immobile and it disturb you emotionally so badly that you can't carry on, you're not going to get very far. And that's true in medicine. You got to spot them, admit them, own up to them, and then go do the next thing, because that's what you have to do.
Yes. On failure, when I make one of these paintings behind us, I take the attitude, probably my first 3 approaches will fail. And I like to fail as quickly as possible so I can find the 4th approach, which will be a success.
You like that number 3. You do.
Experienced it.
I might have you go back there and start scraping on one of those paintings so we can see how many layers are in there.
Yes. I have one body of more of questions.
Sure.
What recommendations do you have for medical and government policymakers about how they should think about doing something about air pollution as well as the maturing of climate change, when it really hits us?
Well, let's take those separately. In terms of the air pollution question, which would be the same for any aspect of climate change, or in fact, any aspect of some big issue that they're going to face, operate from knowledge, not from sound bites and from, people that are paid to tell you what you want to hear and who are potentially going to lead you astray. So get the data, understand the data. And if you don't like the data or you don't believe the data, then go get it 2 or 3 more times from different sources. I mean, convince yourself of what is truly happening. So that would be point number 1, and that would be for air pollution, heat, anything. Don't take my word for it. I mean, I have my opinion, but it's based on reading a lot of other opinions from climate scientists, not from non-climate scientists who have interpreted climate scientists' information. So I try to go right back to the science source. So that was the first one. Then I think your second question was, what about when this has matured or is maturing and hitting us full force? So the implication is, we ain't seen nothing yet.
I agree.
So we're going to need bigger solutions, and we're going to need them faster. Okay. So, if we recognize now, for instance, that we feel that a certain amount of sea level rise is highly likely or even inevitable, there's all sorts of strategies we can deploy. We can deploy preventive strategies if we think that'll work. We can protect our population. We can move people. We can establish a culture of safety related to any particular issue that we think is worsening. If we wait until it happens, then we'll be burying people. And that's not a preferable outcome.
Yes. All right.
So that's what we've got to face up to what we think is true. And if we think it's true, we should be doing something about
it. Okay. As a guest, you have been wonderful. I have one last unexpected question. Since we just met, do you have any questions you'd like to ask me?
Yeah, where is your artwork exhibited?
At Stanford right now, they have on a continuing basis a 15-foot painting in the energy department run by Joe Stegner. And what I did for Stanford was to look at their old energy system and to articulate it in the painting. And then I looked at the new system, and I also articulated that in one painting, 15 feet by 6 feet. That is at Stanford. And in June of last year at the Silicon Valley Energy Summit, when they began the event, and there were 400 people in the audience, some VIPs. For most of the event, they displayed that painting high on the wall, huge, for the entire event. And every year, for 7 years, Stanford has displayed my art in the Arriaga Alumni Conference Center. I owned the lobby for 7 years and they put my 24-foot paintings, my 15-foot paint, and then they always put another one where you check in, and usually in one of the side rooms, they put a painting. But my work has been displayed at NASA. It's been displayed by the Governor's Office of California and other places.
Are you a painter since childhood, or did you come to this late in life, or how did you do it?
I had a full knee replacement in 1996. I respected artists and art, but I had no real interest in it. When I had the knee replacement, I was a publisher of studies, and expensive studies. Some sold for $20,000, but they were always on emerging business. At the end of that operation, I lost my creativity that I needed in running the publishing company, and I had to let my company go dormant. And after about 6 years, my wife, who is an artist, took me to an art critique class. It happened every month. And one day, the leader of the group, an art historian, and a teacher, took me aside and pleaded with me to let him get me started painting art. And I turned him down 2 times, and finally I accepted the third. And I went to his studio, put 2 canvases in front of me, big paint, and he said, stick your paintbrush in the water and in some paint and start painting. And I said, there's nothing I want to paint. And at that point, he cursed me, ran to the door, opened the door, and said, I'm going for a walk. Do what you want to do. And he slammed the door, and he came back, and I just picked up the paint. I did a little, let's say, red and a line. And then I said, wait a second, what if I put another line in parallel? I painted 2 things, and he came back and he said, I've never in my life seen anybody who never painted, never had an interest that could do this. After I made 9 paintings, I was shocked. I have to admit, NASA called me up. They had seen one of my paintings somewhere. I think it was the beginning after the end. And they said to me, they have a building called Sustainability Base that's being built. And they said, we have selected you to make a painting that will bring attention to this building and the investment of taxpayer money. And I went, I asked them, what is the feeling you want to give off to the readers, the viewers? And they said that we were in space and we looked down on Earth and we saw Earth was in trouble, and we decided to land at Moffett Field, in effect, and build this special building called Sustainability. And they loved it. And Stanford, I think it was Jim Sweeney of the Precourt Energy Summit, somehow or another he saw the paintings, and he said, would you make paintings for my event? And it just snowballed from that. I have no training. I'm considered a primitive, but I just happened to be able to hear a concept, a goal, and to be able to very quickly see how it could be presented visually. I'm just blessed with that ability.
It's great. It's awesome. Yeah, it's a gift.
Yeah. And right now I'm trying to paint the climate tipping point. You know, there are about 9 of them that the science have said are tipping points. And I've picked the one that I feel will be the first to tip and have the force of making all the other tips. And I'm trying to paint that. And what that is the melting of the ice. I tend to feel when the ice goes, it affects the currents, it affects the weather, it changes an awful lot of things. So that's the one I'm trying to paint right now. But I just had a full knee replacement, and ironically, I still have the pain, and I've lost my creativity on painting. You know, it's really strange. First, the knee replacement forced me to give up being a publisher, and now another one, but this is only temporary.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Yeah. You got to paint through the pain.
Yes. So I also want to share, this show will be chopped up. Well, first of all, the whole thing will go out on the internet, and then it's going to be chopped up into pieces. And one piece today, another piece tomorrow, a third piece. Also, there's about 100 TV stations in the United States. They're all community stations, and they have licensed my show. We will package this into a 28.5-minute show, and we will release it to 2 syndicators, TV syndicators, one in Maine and one in, I think, New Jersey, I forget. And they will announce it and distribute it to all TV stations that want the show, especially the 100 TV stations that have licensed my show.
So same question for you with your artwork that you asked me about the book. Are you trying to be a commercial success? Are you promoting your artwork in any way?
I am not trying to be a commercial success. I'm very much like you. I have a great desire to be helpful to the people. And I make my art so that, in part, when organizations put on an event, and by the way, the United States Department of Commerce displayed 5 of my shows at one of their big events. I'm trying to raise the level of discussion, usually what's happening at these big events, and to provide a visual. And if you remember, Aristotle told us there's only 3 ways to influence and persuade people, and that's appeal to their intellect and appeal to their emotions, and that's the art. And the last one is to assure them that you are associated with something that's important, like big ideas, big friends, like my friend is NASA and Stanford. So I try to give the people who and organizations that are trying to educate and inform about the threats of climate change. That's what I'm doing.
Well, if we get to the next book, I'm anticipating the cover art right now.
And I'll make everything available that you'd like. All right, now your book again is Enviromedics, the Impact of Climate Change on Human Health. Let's see, I don't know if we saw. And I recommend it. And I want to say I thoroughly enjoyed meeting you, and thank you very much.
We'll stay in touch because I'm going to follow your career with great interest now.
Good, I'll keep following yours as well. All right, have a good evening.
Okay, you too.
All right, okay, bye-bye.